Okay, this is chapter 1 from Mankey Macroeconomics, and this is about the science of macroeconomics. Okay. Macroeconomics is basically the study of the economy as a whole. Okay, and you studied your microeconomics. Okay, in microeconomics we study the part of the economy. Okay, we discuss about the individual consumption, individual production, and then the output of individual firm. Okay, so but in macroeconomics we discuss the economy as a whole. So we discuss about aggregate production, we discuss about aggregate consumption. Okay, and then aggregate demand. In microeconomics you studied individual consumer demand, but here we discuss about the aggregate demand of the whole economy. We discuss about aggregate supply. Okay, there you studied the price of individual commodity, but here we will discuss about the general price. Okay, so these are the issues that we address in macroeconomics. Why does the cost of living keep rising? Okay, we see that cost of living is increasing. The cost of living 10 years back and 20 years back, it was lower, but day by day we see that there is an increase in the cost of living. So we try to find out the answer for this, why there is an increase in the cost of living. Then also this is another macroeconomic issue that people are unemployed. Okay, and then the question is why are millions of people unemployed even if when the economy is booming? So we will also discuss the problem of unemployment in this macroeconomics course. And we will also discuss the business cycle. In the business cycle, there are different phases: peak, recession, tough, and recovery. So recession is, you know, the lowest point, declining points. So we will discuss what is recession and what are the causes of recession and what government can do to combat recession. Okay. Then another macroeconomic issue is the government budget deficit. Okay, so government as they are spending in government as their revenue. So if the government revenue is more than government expenditure, so we say that government budget is in surplus. But if the government expenditures are more than government revenue, then the government budget is in deficit. Okay, and then it will become a problem. Then the question would be how to finance this deficit. And then also we will study that if there is a budget deficit in an economy, then how it will affect the economy. Okay, because if there is a budget deficit, then you have to finance that deficit, and for financing you have to borrow. Okay, and if you are borrowing, that will accumulate your debt. Okay, so this will be a problem. Okay, debt accumulation. And then we see that why are so many countries poor? You see, some countries are rich, some countries are advanced, some countries are poor. Okay, so then we will see that what policies we have to adopt to get rid of poverty. Okay, people are, not getting proper food, proper shelter. They don't have access to clean drinking water. They don't have access to sanitation facilities. They don't have medical facilities. They don't have access to proper education. Okay, so this we will discuss in this course. Then why we study macroeconomics? So because macroeconomy affects the society's well-being. Okay, you see that each 1 point increase in the unemployment rate is associated with 920 more suicides. Okay, because if people are unemployed, then it will be difficult for them to survive, so they will commit suicide. And also there will be 650 more homicides. Okay, so there will be unrest in the economy, there will be killing. Okay, and then 4,000 more people admitted to state mental institutions. Unemployment develop stress, and then people need uh, to go to a psychiatrist, okay, to get help for their stress. Okay, so these are the basically effects which were studied by some researchers, and then 300 and 3,300 more people sent to state prison, because if there is unemployment, then it will result increase in crime, and then they face you know criminal proceedings, and then they will be jailed, and then there will be more death. 37,000 more death is associated with 1 point increase in the unemployment rate. So you can see that how unemployment is dangerous for the economy. These are the effects that were estimated by some economists. Okay, and it will also increase domestic violence. Okay, and homelessness. Okay? If someone is unemployed, they cannot pay rent, and then they will become homeless. Then we study economic model. Okay, and they are simplified version of more complex reality. And in model, we stripped away irrelevant details. Okay, and in model we used to show the relationship between macroeconomic variables. Okay, we try to study the relationship, just like I told you to think about title for your project. So basically you select some macroeconomic variable, and you will try to find out the nature of relationship existing between macroeconomic variables. And we use also economic model to explain the behavior of the economy, and then using these models we devise policies to improve economic performance. Okay, so we have simple model, we have macroeconomic model, okay, complex models. Okay, but we start with a very simple model. So here also in this course we will try to learn some simple model to understand the relationship between variables and their effect on economy. This is the example of a model for supply and demand for new cars. Okay, and shows how various events affect the price and quantity of cars. We are assuming that market is competitive. Okay, you have studied perfect competition. Anyone knows what are the features of a perfectly competitive market? Yes. Any answer? So in a perfectly competitive
Sir,
market,
Perfect.
yes, yes,
In perfectly competitive
Asan,
market,
थोड़ा सा
a slight change.
yes.
Sir, in perfectly competitive market, a slight change in your product price will change your demand for product.
Now, what are the characteristics of a perfectly competitive market? Perfect competition is a market structure. No? You have studied in your microeconomics course. Just like monopoly is a market structure, monopolistic competition is a market structure, oligopoly is a market structure. So perfect competition is also a market structure, and in that market structure there are many buyers and many sellers, and they are selling homogeneous product. Okay, they are selling a product which is same by quality, color, design, trademark, everything is same. Okay, and then because there are many buyers and many sellers, they are selling the same product, and there is a perfect knowledge on the part of buyer, there is a perfect knowledge on the part of seller. So each buyer and seller is, it's too small to affect the market price. That's why we say that under perfect competition, we have the they have price taker. No? The market will determine the price, and buyer and seller will take that price as given. So they cannot influence market price. Okay. So we are assuming in our model that there is a perfect competition, and the variables we have quantity demand, quantity of cars that buyers demand, and then we have quantity supply, the quantity of cars that producer supply, and then the price of new cars. Okay. So these are the variables of our model. Okay. Then aggregate income. You see here, because it's macroeconomics, so we are taking aggregate income. Okay. This is aggregate income in the economy. Then we will see how the demand for car and supply of car, they are affected by price of car and the aggregate income. And also we have another variable is price of steel. Okay, this is an input. Okay, so let's see. So demand for car, this is a demand function. Okay, quantity demand for car is a function of the price of car and aggregate income. What do you think about the relationship between the price of new car and demand for new car? It would be positive or negative, holding all other factors constant.
Negative.
Yes.
There would be an inverse relation. There would be an inverse relation between the price and demand of a new car, sir.
Yes, there will be inverse relationship, negative relationship. So it means when the price of new car increases, quantity demand will decrease. Okay. And what about the relationship between aggregate income and demand for new car?
There would be a
Direct
direct relation.
relationship. Direct
Yes,
relationship.
there will be a positive relationship. Okay, when aggregate income increases, so then there will be a more demand for new car. Okay, it shows that quantity of car consumer demanded is related to the price of car and aggregate income. Okay, so in general functional notation, we say that this is this is the list of variable that affect quantity demand. Okay, this is our simple model, demand model. Okay, and then a specific functional form. Here we show the precise quantitative relationship. See, this is general form, and this is the specific functional form. And this shows if price is zero, aggregate income is zero, still there would be a demand for 60 new cars. Okay, and you can see that there is a negative relationship between price of car and the quantity demand of car, and there is a positive relationship. Okay, between the aggregate income and the demand for car. So this is the specific functional form. Demand. So if we want to draw the demand curve, so we have, because we have two dimension, okay, we have x-axis and y-axis. So we have to keep one independent variable constant. Okay, then we can draw the relationship between quantity demand and the other independent variable. So here you can see this is vertical axis This is horizontal axis, okay. And then we are taking price here, we are taking quantity car here. So if I plot the demand equation on this graph, the demand curve would be positively slope or negatively slope? Yes.
Negative slope.
Yes, demand curve would be negatively slope. अजान हो रही है, उसके बाद फिर कंटिन्यू रखेंगे.
मैं स्टार्ट माई थी जेंटली ये आवाज होती है तो जो म्यूट है
जो बनाता है ना तो
Okay. You said it would be negatively slope, okay? This is negatively sloped demand curve. Okay. Can you see the slide?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
No, sir.
You can see?
नो सर
No, sir. Not yet.
नो सर
Sir, sorry to interrupt, sir. Hello,
Slide show
sir.
नहीं हो रही?
नहीं हो रहा है सर.
slide. No, sir. नहीं हो
हो रही है सर.
Slide show हो रही
हो
है
रही
ना?
है सर हो रही है
नहीं हो रही
रही.
ठीक है?
सर को स्लाइड शो नहीं हो रही
सर हो रही है?
नहीं
नहीं सर स्लाइड शो नहीं हो रही.
अच्छा, अभी मैं
Slide show
दोबारा
नहीं होती. सॉफ्टवेयर शो हो रहा है.
दोबारा मैं शेयर कर
आवाज
देता
आ
हूँ.
रही है मगर स्लाइड शो नहीं हो रही है. जी अभी
अब
आ
हो
रही
गई
आइए
है
अभी शेयर.
सर.
अब हो रही है शो?
यस
है.
सर.
जी सर अभी आई है.
नो
ओके. ओके, अपने माइक को म्यूट कर लें, ठीक है?
सर sorry to interrupt. सर कुछ
जी,
स्टूडेंट
बोलें.
कह रहे हैं कि सर को बोलें कुछ मतलब इंग्लिश में कंप्लीट लेक्चर नहीं दें, थोड़ा उर्दू के लफ्ज इंक्लूड कर लें, कुछ को प्रॉब्लम आ रहा है सर.
क्लास तो इंग्लिश में होगी, मास्टर लेवल की क्लास है, ठीक है।
सर स्टूडेंट कह रहे थे, चलो सही है सर, मैंने उनकी बात आपको पहुंचा दी। थैंक यू सर।
ठीक है, ओके। Okay, we discuss about demand curve. Okay, so this is negatively slope. Okay. Then you will discuss about the supply. Okay, quantity supply is a function of price. Okay, price of new car. The quantity supply of new car is a function of price of new car and the price of steel. Now, what do you think about the relationship between the price of new car and quantity supply? It would be positive or negative?
Positive.
It would be positive. Okay, and then
Positive.
okay, then we have price of steel. Steel is the input. So, what do you expect about the relationship?
Negative
There will
relationship. The
be
price of
there will be
steel
a negative.
increases,
Yes,
supply decreases.
yes, because when price of steel increases, the cost of production will increase,
Will increase,
and
which will discourage the suppliers to produce more.
yes, because the profit margin will decrease, no? Holding all other factor constant. If all other factors are constant, if there is an increase in the price of steel, so this will increase the cost of production, and this will reduce the profit margin, and then supply will decrease. Because the objective of producer is what? What is the objective of producer?
Maximize profit.
Yes, to maximize profit. Okay, so
Yes.
when there is a decrease in their profit margin, they will decrease their supply. So if I want to plot the supply equation, keeping price of steel constant, then the supply curve will be positively slope or negatively slope.
Positively sloped.
Positive.
This is positively slope. Okay, this is the supply curve. So we have demand curve, we have supply curve. So the supply curve shows the relationship between quantity supplied and the price, other things equal. And now we can get the equilibrium price, okay, here at this point. So we have equilibrium. This is the equilibrium price where the quantity demand and quantity supply are equal and the market is at equilibrium. And if we take here, this is the equilibrium quantity. This is the equilibrium quantity. So we have equilibrium price and we have equilibrium quantity. So you can see that if we are moving along the same demand curve, for example, if we are moving in this direction, here to here, this means price is increasing and quantity demand is decreasing. When we are moving along the same supply curve like this, so this means that as price increases, quantity supply will also increase. As price decreases, quantity supply will decrease. And here, when price decreases, quantity demand will increase. And then finally here, we have equilibrium. This is the equilibrium price. This is the equilibrium quantity. So this is a very simple model of demand and supply, okay, economic model. And then the question is, what would happen if there is an increase in income? You see, the initial equilibrium price is P1, equilibrium quantity is Q1. Now, if there is an increase in income, then what will happen here?
Demand
Do
curve
you
will
think the
shift
supply?
rightward.
Okay,
Sir,
demand curve will shift rightward.
if
Yes,
there would
because
be an increase in income, there would be a shift in demand curve.
yes, when income increases, then demand curve will shift to
Shift
the
upward.
rightward
Out
or leftward.
rightward. Upward, no?
Yes,
It means
demand curve will. Yes, because this is a normal good, no? If it is inferior good, then demand curve will shift to the left because it's a normal
Leftward,
good.
yes, sir. Because
Okay,
due to the inferiority of the good.
if it is inferior, but because this is a new car, so new car is a normal good.
Normal
So
good.
if there is increase in aggregate income, demand curve will shift to the right. What will happen to the supply curve? Supply curve will shift to the right or left?
So
Right, sir. Right.
Supply curve will shift to the right. Yes. Any other answer?
it can move upwards, so
Yep.
there will be increase in supply.
No. When there is increase in income, what will happen to the supply? It will shift to the right or left?
Will
Right,
shift
sir.
to the rightward.
Rightward.
It'll
Rightward.
shift
It should
rightward.
shift to the rightward.
Why it will shift to the right? Do you think that
If
the
income
supply?
increases when the
No, sir.
supply
Income will
not
not impact on the supply. Income will not impact on the supply.
Yes,
It
because if you
basically happens
see,
that the
see,
price
this
will
is the
increase.
supply.
The price will increase, and the quantity demanded will be shift to the rightward. There will
You
be
see
no
here,
change on the curve of supply.
yes, there will be no change because the position of the supply curve will not change because the supply depends on what? Depends on price of car and the price of steel. We don't have income variable here. So the supply is not a function of aggregate income. Demand, no? Quantity demand is a function of aggregate income. That's why if there is change in income, it will change only demand. No? It will not change the supply because income variable is not here. Okay. So then if there is increase in income, demand curve will shift. Okay. And this is the demand curve. So what happened to the equilibrium price? Now you can see that
It will be increases.
equilibrium price will increase because at the same now before this change, P1 is the equilibrium price, okay, and Q1 is the equilibrium quantity. Now if income increases, so demand curve will shift to the right. So if I extend this line here, then basically what is the situation in the market? There is excess demand or excess supply?
Excess demand.
Yes, there is excess demand at the original. So this means there is a disequilibrium now in the market. And the nature of disequilibrium is that there is excess demand. Whenever there is excess demand in the market, this will put a pressure on price to move up or down.
Upward.
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 Price. Whenever there is excess demand, excess demand means there is a shortage. Okay, so if there is excess demand or if there is shortage, then price will increase. Okay, so price will increase, and this is the new equilibrium price P1, and this is the new equilibrium quantity Q1. Because when price increases, then you will move along this demand curve, new demand curve, and finally you will reach here. And when price increases, then quantity supplied will increase, and this is the new equilibrium. Okay. And this is the new equilibrium price, this is the new equilibrium quantity. Now, what will happen if there is an increase in the price of steel? Yes. What will happen? Demand curve will shift to the right or left?
So no impact on
So,
demand curve will not be shift in this case, which we are discussing now.
Demand curve will not shift because demand, quantity demand is not a function of price of steel.
Though the supply curve will shift leftward.
Supply curve will shift leftward. Why it will shift leftward? Because when price of steel increases, cost of production will increase, and then supplier will reduce their supply. Okay, this is supply curve will shift to leftward. Now at equilibrium price P1, initial equilibrium price, what is the situation in the market? There is excess demand or excess supply?
excess supply, sir.
Excess
There
demand.
is supply.
Excess demand, sir.
Excess
Sorry.
demand, sir.
Okay, this is at P1, this is the quantity supply, but at P1, this is
Sir,
the
I
quantity.
just want to clear my mind. This red line shows the reduce or increase.
Decrease. Leftward, no?
Decrease. Upward.
For each, no? This is
Leftward.
left decrease, no? Before leftward shift, no? If it shift
Okay.
rightward,
Okay,
then it
sir.
shows.
Okay.
You can see, no? Here you can plot. This is the quantity. Now this is the quantity. So this much decrease, no?
Sir, I
This arrow.
understand.
Okay. Now here you can see this. There is excess demand. Again, excess demand will put a pressure on price to move up. So when price increases, this quantity demand will decrease, quantity supply will increase, and finally we have new equilibrium here. Okay. When this shift left, so this quantity, the new equilibrium quantity is Q2, and new equilibrium price is P1. So this was a simple model of demand and supply in the economy. Now we have endogenous variable and exogenous variable. Okay. The values of endogenous variable are determined in the model. Okay. And the values of exogenous variable, they are determined outside the model. So in the demand and supply equation, so we have endogenous variable and exogenous variable. Can you identify in our model which variables were exogenous? Which variable is exogenous? Whose values is not determined within the model, outside the model. Here, which variable is exogenous? Any answer? See, here we are determining, no? Price is determined, quantity is determined through price and quantity are determined through interaction of demand and supply. Do you think income is determined somewhere here?
No, sir.
No.
We can't determine it.
This is determined outside the model, no? Model is not determining. Yeah? This model is not determining aggregate. Same is here. You see, price is determined by this model. Quantity is determined by this model. Okay. But what about price of steel? This is not determined by this model. Okay. So this is exogenous. So the values of exogenous variable are determined outside the model. Okay. The model takes their values and behavior as given. Okay. We have taken the values of these. So endogenous variables are these three variables, okay, price and quantity, demand and quantity supply, and exogenous are aggregate income and price of steel. They are determined outside the model. Okay. So whenever we make a model, okay, so we define our dependent variable and independent variable, then exogenous variable and endogenous variable. What are the dependent variable? What is the dependent variable here in this model? Dependent variable. No answer. Price is dependent variable.
I'm not wrong, sir.
Dependent variable. Which variable is dependent variable?
Price
This
also
one.
dependent
sir.
variable.
Price is not dependent variable. Quantity, supply,
Quantity
QS.
no, we normally put
This-
independent variable on Excel.
This depends on price and price of steel, price of car and price of steel. This, no? We keep dependent variable left hand side of our function. And these are the independent variable. Price of new car and price of steel are independent variable. Here also. What is dependent variable in this model?
Quantity.
Quantity demand. Okay. and
Quantity demand
price
also
of
an
new car
independent variable.
and aggregate income. These two are independent variable. Okay. So now you can identify which variables are dependent, which variables are independent. Then from independent variable, we identified that this y is which type of variable? Exogenous variable or endogenous variable?
Exogenous.
Yes, exogenous.
Ex-
Same as with here. This is dependent variable. These two prices are independent variable. And in this model, which variable is exogenous? P or PS?
The price of the product होगा ना? I think
That is
steel.
exogenous.
Price of steel.
Price of steel. Na? Price of steel is not determined in this model. Na? Price of the product, the price of car is determined within the model. So this is endogenous. Na? This is endogenous. This is exogenous. I hope now it is clear to you. Dependent variable, independent variable, endogenous variable, and exogenous variable. Okay, here it is. Endogenous variable, exogenous
सर
variable.
इंडोजीनियस और एक्सोजीनियस एक्सप्लेन कर रहे हैं सर, ये समझ में नहीं आया सर।
इंडोजिनस वेरिएबल वो वेरिएबल होते हैं जो कि मॉडल उनको डिटरमिन करता है। लेकिन ये क्वांटिटी है ना, इक्विलिब्रियम क्वांटिटी मीन इक्विलिब्रियम जो है क्वांटिटी डिमांड और क्वांटिटी सप्लाई है। दिस इज प्राइस, दिस इज इक्विलिब्रियम प्राइस। तो ये मॉडल डिटरमिन कर रहा है ना, मार्केट इक्विलिब्रियम डिटरमिन कर रहा है। तो दीज आर इंडोजिनस वेरिएबल। लेकिन जो प्राइस ऑफ स्टील एंड देन एग्रीगेट इनकम, ये कहीं डिटरमिन नहीं हो रहा, they are determined outside the model. So these two are exogenous variable. ये aggregate income and price of steel, they are exogenous variable. Clear?
यस सर, थैंक यू सर।
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Now let's move to discuss more about the model. You see, no one model can address all the issues. No? So we make a model, but we know that we cannot address all issues. You see, when we are making model, we say that holding all other factors constant, then we are just addressing the price and quantity, and then there are exogenous variables. Okay, so for example, in our supply demand model, can tell us how a fall in aggregate income affect price and quantity. So we discuss if there is increase in income or if there is a decrease in income, we can explain how it will affect the price of car and the quantity of cars. But we cannot tell why aggregate demand increase, why aggregate demand decrease. So this we cannot answer. So one model cannot tell you everything. So limited. So we are limited to our variables. Okay. So we study about different models in macroeconomics. We have model for unemployment, we have model for inflation, we have growth models. Okay, so we have a model for investment, we have model for consumption, we have a saving model. Okay, so we have different model, and in this course you will study different model, and then we see what are the independent variables that affect the dependent variable and what variables are exogenous. Okay. So for each model, we keep track record of its assumptions. So we make assumptions, and then we will see that which variables are endogenous, which are exogenous. So sometime, in one model, one variable is exogenous, but in some other model, the same variable would become endogenous. So it is not fixed. No? You cannot say that this variable is endogenous. So maybe in one model, this is endogenous, but in another model, it will become exogenous. Same is with exogenous. In one model, one variable is exogenous, and in some other model, it will become endogenous. And the question can help us understand, okay, some question, and those it cannot. So we have to keep track record of this. What are the questions for which we can get the answer from our model? Just like in our demand supply model, we can get the answer. What would be the effect on price? What would be the effect on quantity, demand, and supply? But we cannot, answer the question. So if there is an increase in income, what would be the effect on the, behavior, or what would be the effect on, if we are studying on a particular car, we cannot say what would be the effect on other demand for other cars, supply cars. So we are specific, to our model. And then we have prices. So prices can be flexible, or prices can be sticky, rigid. Okay. So we have market clearing assumption. Okay. Just the model that we discussed just now. We have flexible prices because the price adjusts to equate demand and supply. This is our assumption. Okay. So you see here, just like here, there was equilibrium here now, and then increase in income. Okay. Demand increases, then there is a disequilibrium in the market. Then how to bring back equilibrium in the economy, which variable will adjust. So in this case, we saw that price variable will adjust to bring equilibrium in the economy. So in this case, price is flexible. So price can move upward, or price can move downward. Okay. So you can see that there is increase in price. Same, if there is a decrease in demand, so then price will move downward to bring equilibrium in the economy. So this is called price adjustment. There is also possibility of quantity adjustment. Okay. For example, if there is increase in demand, and if supply increases up to this point, so price will remain same, and then new equilibrium would be here with this quantity. That is called quantity adjustment. Okay. But here we are assuming that there would be a price adjustment, and whenever there is disequilibrium in the economy, price will adjust to bring equilibrium in the market. Okay. And we see that in the short run, many prices are sticky. Okay. They, adjust, slowly. Their response is not immediate. Okay. Slowly they adjust. Sometimes, prices are rigid. Price cannot change. So many labor market, they have their fixed contract for their wages. What do you think about wages are, rigid, downward or upward? वेजेस जो हैं वो डाउनवर्ड रिजिड होते हैं या अपवर्ड? अच्छा, आपकी अगर कोई वेजेस बढ़ा दे तो आप क्या करेंगे? शोर शराबा करेंगे?
नो सर।
इसका
नहीं
मतलब जब वेजेस को कम कर देंगे तो आप शोर शराबा करेंगे ना?
यस सर।
तो रिजिडिटी
Yes, sir.
डाउनवर्ड की तरफ है ना। आप जो है ना, लेबर जो है, लेबर यूनियन जो है वो प्रोटेस्ट करते हैं उस वक्त जब वेजेस को कम किया जाता है ना। तो इसका मतलब है वेजेस जो है वो डाउनवर्ड रिजिड है ना, अपवर्ड तो प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, बढ़ते जाए। तो कि कॉन्ट्रैक्ट होते हैं ना, तो दैट्स व्हाई दे आर फिक्स एंड वी फेस वेज रिजिडिटी प्रॉब्लम। इसी तरह कुछ चीज़ों की प्राइसेस जो हैं वो इट इज़ वेरी डिफ़िकल्ट टू चेंज। आपने देखा होगा कि न्यूज़पेपर है, मैगज़ीन है, वो ये नहीं होगा कि हर महीने एक नया प्राइस उसकी हो। काफ़ी टाइम के बाद उसकी प्राइस जो है वो चेंज होती है ना। न्यूज़पेपर है, मैगज़ीन है, इस तरह। सो वो अपवर्ड फिर उस रिजिडिटी होती है। सो शॉर्ट रन में जो है ना, जो है वो थोड़ा सा रिजिडिटी है, स्टिकी होती है ना, दे एडजस्ट स्लोली, बट लॉन्ग रन में फ्लेक्सिबल होती है। वी विल सी, वी विल स्टडी अबाउट दिस। So economy's behavior depends partly on whether prices are sticky or flexible. Okay. So sticky mean they change, but जो है ना इतना ज़्यादा फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी नहीं है ना। लेकिन फ्लेक्सिबल मीन they can easily move upward or downward the prices. So there are some commodities, for them it is easy to change the price. अब देखा होगा कि जो एग है उसकी प्राइस जो है वो फ्लेक्सिबल होती है ना। लेकिन जो दूसरी चीज़ें हैं, ब्रेड है और दूसरी चीज़ें हैं, उनकी प्राइसेस जो है ना वो स्टिकी होती हैं। ये नहीं होगा कि हर हफ्ते जाएं एक नई प्राइस हो, थोड़ा सा स्टिकी होता है। सो प्राइसेस आर स्टिकी, देन डिमांड वॉन्ट ऑलवेज इक्वल सप्लाई, एंड दिस एक्सप्लेन why there is unemployment, because people are not ready to accept lower wages in the labor market. So that's why we face unemployment. If they are ready to get lower wages, then we have lesser problem of unemployment. Unemployment would be lower. But the thing is, एक शख्स अगर एक वेज पे काम कर रहा है, उसको अगर लोअर वेज ऑफर की जाए तो वो प्रीफर करता है, ठीक है अभी मैं काम नहीं करूँगा, मैं कोई और जॉब सर्च कर लूँगा। दैट इज़ द प्रॉब्लम, एंड इन दैट पीरियड that person would be unemployed. Then why firm cannot always sell all the goods they produce? यही वजह है ना, because if the prices are sticky, so then it is not possible to sell your output, and then it will accumulate inventory. Okay, long run में we assume that prices are flexible, okay, market clear, and the behavior of economy would be different in the long run. So here in macroeconomics, we will study two time periods, okay, short run and long run. So the behavior of macroeconomic variable would be different in the short run and different in the long run, and we will see what would be the situation in the market in the short run and what would be the situation of the market in the long run. So we will study both. So we will discuss short run equilibrium and we will also discuss the long run equilibrium. Okay. So we discussed about this chapter. You have to go through this chapter. Let me stop recording.